I went no contact with my narcissistic mom, so here's what happened. My name's Milo. I'm 25 years old, and for most of my life, I was the one in my family who held the flashlight while everyone else did the breaking. The peacekeeper. The fixer. The one who stayed quiet to keep the room from erupting. I moved out at 20, finally drawing a shaky little line in the sand between my sanity and my mother's chaos. I got a decent job in digital design, remote work, steady pay, and for a while, it felt like I'd made it out clean. Sure, I still showed up to the family cookouts, answered birthday texts, made calls on Mother's Day. I did my duty, but I kept my distance. See, my mom, Darlene, she's got this weird superpower. She can look like a saint in public while casually slicing you open with a smile at home. I'm talking Instagram-level doting parent with Pinterest-worthy meals while behind the scenes she's criticizing your life choices with a sugary tone that would make strangers assume you were the problem. And for years, I played along. But last spring, things changed. I got a raise at work. A big one. I didn't brag, didn't make a post about it. I knew how my family worked. Any hint that you're doing well becomes a reason for them to suddenly need things, money, time, favors. But my little sister Chloe came to visit, and while she was watching me Venmo a friend for dinner, a notification popped up. It was my bonus. She didn't say anything that night. But a few days later, I got the first hint something was brewing. A group text. From my mom. Subject, Family Escape 2024. Attached were links, fancy beach resort, photos of a sunset over palm trees, an itinerary laid out like a wedding invite. No discussion. Just a line that said, Milo, you're in room 2. Hope you can cover your part. We deserve this. I blinked, then scrolled up. My name was listed under the booking confirmation, next to a price tag that looked like someone had confused me with a trust fund kid. I replied, looks great. Who's paying for all this? Darlene fired back almost instantly. We were hoping you could cover it. You've been doing so well. It would mean so much to the family. I stared at the screen, fingers twitching. I could technically afford it, but that wasn't the point. It wasn't a question. It was a demand, cloaked in faux sweetness. So I said nothing. Cue the guilt parade. Chloe, come on, Milo, we never do anything together. Mom, I gave up so much for you, and now you're too good to take your family on a trip? My Aunt Susan even chimed in. Milo, memories are priceless. Don't be stingy. After 3 days of passive-aggressive nonsense, I sent one message, not paying for the trip. If you want to do something affordable together, I'm open to that. Silence. Then boom. A $2,400 charge hit my card. I thought it was fraud. Called the bank. They confirmed. Airline tickets. Booked by Darlene. I stared at the wall. She'd stolen my card info and used it without asking. When I confronted her, she laughed. Said she just needed to hold the reservation and that they'd pay me back. Eventually, I canceled the card, flagged the charges, called the airline and got the tickets voided. Refund? Not on non-refundable fares. Shame. That's when it got ugly. Chloe called me sobbing. Darlene left voicemails about betrayal and how I was ruining the family. Then came the kicker. 2 days later, I got a letter from a lawyer, or so it claimed, alleging emotional damage. Interference. Legal buzzwords meant to scare me into backing down. But I looked closer. No firm name. No license. Just a dramatic letterhead that screamed Google Docs template. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a threat. Homemade. And desperate. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about control. And I was done playing along. The backlash from pulling the plug on those tickets detonated like a firecracker in a dry field. It wasn't just passive-aggressive emojis or sad-face guilt emojis. Darlene went full Broadway. She mobilized the relatives like she was leading a charge into emotional battle, casting herself as the wronged matriarch and painting me as the cold, ungrateful son who abandoned his fragile, selfless mother in her time of need. The group chat turned into a full-blown smear campaign. My cousin Ava said I was unrecognizable. My Uncle Greg, who hadn't messaged me since 2016, popped in with, family means sacrifice, Milo. You're better than this. And Chloe, sweet, confused Chloe, was caught in the middle, unsure of who to believe, asking me if I really thought a vacation would bankrupt me. That's when I realized they didn't understand. They never had. It wasn't about the money. It was about them always expecting it. Expecting me to cave. To play the good son, the quiet provider, the peacekeeper in khakis. And this time, I refused. So I went quiet. Deleted myself from the group chat. Muted all notifications. I didn't block anyone. Not yet. I wanted them to see the read receipts and feel the weight of the silence. No explanations. No counterarguments. Just space. It drove them mad. Darlene left 5 voicemails in 2 days. The last one was particularly theatrical. I gave you life, Milo. I gave up everything for you. And now you treat me like I'm disposable? Shame on you. Click. I played it back once, twice, then saved it. Something about hearing the rage in her voice, the twisting of guilt into entitlement, crystallized everything for me. This wasn't a family, it was a system. One where I was expected to sacrifice without question, without limits. And the second I stepped out of line, I became the villain. The next week, I mailed Darlene a certified letter. Not a text, not an email. A typed, signed letter with legal phrasing that made it clear she was to cease using my personal information, including my credit card, address, and employer, for any purpose. I also let her know that any future threats, harassment, or impersonation would be met with immediate legal action. I never heard her voice again. Instead, she shifted tactics. Chloe told me later that she started crying during dinner, telling the family she was being erased by her son, that I had always been too sensitive, too distant, too cold. A few relatives reached out. Quietly, carefully. They asked if everything was okay, if I was just going through something. I gave them the same answer every time. I'm setting boundaries. That's all. Some respected it. Others vanished. And honestly, I didn't miss them. Around that time, something strange happened. I started sleeping better. No tightness in my chest at night. No dreading the vibration of my phone. My mornings became mine again. My work performance improved. I stopped bracing for conflict every time I opened my inbox. I even reconnected with a few friends I'd unintentionally distanced myself from. Turns out, when your mental real estate isn't consumed by guilt, you've got room for joy. The final straw? Chloe texted me a screenshot from a new group chat. Darlene had renamed it The Family That Still Cares. And beneath it, a message: we should plan something without Milo. He's made his choice. I stared at the screen, a weird mix of heartbreak and relief flooding through me. You'd think after the group chat stunt and the teary dinner theatrics, Darlene and her loyal fan club would have run out of steam. But the thing about people like my mother? They don't retreat, they reload. About a week after Chloe forwarded that screenshot of the renamed chat, I got a package. No note, no return address. Inside was a framed photo of me as a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, grinning with a missing tooth and frosting on my nose, sitting on Darlene's lap. It was the picture from my 7th birthday, the one she always said was her favorite day as a mom. The message wasn't subtle. This was Darlene at her most manipulative, nostalgia as ammunition. But she hadn't counted on the fact that I didn't feel warmth looking at that photo. I felt sadness, not because of what was, but because of everything I now knew wasn't real. That picture didn't tell the story of the screaming matches behind closed doors, of the time I had to beg her not to cancel Chloe's dance recital because she was tired of chauffeuring everyone around. It didn't show the late nights I spent tiptoeing around her moods like landmines. It was a snapshot of fiction. I tucked it back into the box and slid it onto a shelf in the garage, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of what I came from, of what I refused to become. The silence continued. No more group messages. No more fake lawyer letters. But one by one, family members started checking out, digitally and emotionally. Some unfollowed me. Some blocked me. One aunt even sent a mass email announcing a family realignment and how she would be focusing on relationships that bring joy and mutual respect. Sure. Translation: Darlene had started a new campaign, and I wasn't part of the membership anymore. But I'll tell you the truth. I felt lighter. Cutting toxic ties wasn't clean or painless. It came with waves of doubt, grief, and second-guessing. But it also gave me room. Room to think. Room to breathe. And that's when I made the biggest move yet. I filed a formal complaint with the credit bureau to flag Darlene's unauthorized use of my information. It took documentation, time, and more emotional labor than I liked to admit. But the result? A note added to my credit report. A firewall. I also sat down with Chloe. Not a confrontation. A conversation. We met for coffee. She showed up looking like she hadn't slept well in weeks. I could tell she was bracing for a fight. I'm not mad at you, I said first. You're not responsible for her. But I needed to do this, for me. She nodded, biting her lip. It's just, everything changed so fast. I feel like I'm stuck between you and her. You don't have to choose. But you also don't have to explain me to them. I've done that enough for all of us. We talked for over an hour. About our childhood. About the guilt we didn't have words for back then. She admitted that she missed the version of our family that only existed in snapshots, like that birthday photo. That version never existed, I said gently. It was curated, manufactured. She didn't argue. When we left, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. It didn't fix everything, but it was something. Meanwhile, I started building something else, a sense of self untouched by Darlene's voice. I redecorated my apartment. I bought new furniture that didn't remind me of what she once liked. I got a tattoo, a small symbol that meant renewal. And when I looked in the mirror, for the first time in a long time, I saw someone I recognized, not as her son, but as me. Update. It's been 2 months since I set the boundary. 2 full months of no messages, no calls, no surprise group chats designed to manipulate me into guilt-soaked compliance. The silence, at first, was unsettling, like standing in the aftermath of a storm, wondering if it's really over or just the eye of something worse. But that silence, it turned into the most peaceful sound I've ever known. I didn't expect my body to react the way it did. I started waking up without a lump in my chest. Food tasted better. The fog that I'd worn like a second skin for years finally began to lift. Turns out, when you're no longer someone's emotional hostage, you remember what breathing feels like. I moved into a new place. Nothing fancy, just a sunlit one-bedroom near the edge of town. I picked every piece of furniture myself. No compromises, no what would mom think, second-guessing. Just me. It was the first time in years that my space felt like mine. And Chloe? She kept reaching out. Not in a desperate way, just little check-ins. A meme, a quote, a picture of her cat doing something ridiculous. She didn't bring up mom again. Neither did I. It was like we silently agreed to rebuild something on our terms, free of the legacy we never asked to inherit. Then, one afternoon, an envelope showed up at my door. No return address. Handwritten. Inside, a birthday card. It was from Darlene. The front read, "To my wonderful son." Inside, "No matter how far you go, you'll always be mine. You can't run from family." That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of what she did. Just a thinly veiled warning wrapped in a Hallmark sentiment. I didn't react. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I burned it. Literally. In my backyard fire pit. Watched the edges curl and blacken until her words were nothing but ash. That night, I filed a cease. My lawyer. Yes, I have one now. Sent it certified. Clear language. Legally binding. A final wall between me and the narrative she kept trying to write. It felt like burying a ghost. I've started therapy. Not because I'm broken, but because I finally have the space to heal properly. I've learned that love, real love, isn't supposed to come with strings, contracts, or credit card charges. It's supposed to be chosen. Freely. Daily. Not demanded as payment. I reconnected with my cousin Lena. We used to be close before Darlene poisoned the waters. Turns out, she'd gone no contact 2 years before me. We laughed over coffee about how similar our stories were. How manipulation wears the same mask in every family. I also got promoted at work. Funny how mental clarity boosts performance. My team noticed. My boss noticed. I noticed. For the first time, I started believing that I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. No part of this has been easy. The grief still hits in weird ways. A smell, a movie, a memory triggered by an old song. But those moments are just echoes now. Fading ones. I still think about that birthday photo sometimes. The one she sent me in a frame to guilt me back into line. Not because I miss her, but because it reminds me that what we present to the world isn't always what lives behind the curtain. And sometimes, cutting the ties isn't cruel, it's necessary. So here I am, 2 months later. Not fixed, not perfect, but free. And that's a beginning I never thought I'd get to write. I wish I could tell you there was a neat turning point, some cinematic moment where I knew I had finally healed. But the truth? Healing didn't arrive with a bang. It crept in like sunlight through blinds you'd forgotten to open, warming parts of me I didn't know were still cold. A few weeks after I sent the cease and desist, things stayed quiet. Not eerie quiet. Not the kind that makes you look over your shoulder. Just real, breathable quiet. No fake mailers. No weird emails. No sob-stained voicemails from Chloe asking me to just talk to mom. Silence. And in that silence, something new began to grow. I started hosting game nights. Nothing extravagant, just me, a couple of coworkers turned friends, and enough snacks to bankrupt the vending machine. We laughed. We shared stupid stories. I talked about my family in the past tense, and no one looked at me like I was broken for needing distance. They just nodded, understood, kept the game moving. I also started hiking. It began as a way to kill restless Saturday mornings. Just me, a backpack, and a playlist titled Escape, gently. But the more I walked, the lighter I felt. I left a lot on those trails, resentment, grief, shame. By the third hike, I wasn't escaping anymore. I was arriving. Chloe texted less frequently, but our exchanges felt easier, healthier. She started sending me progress photos of a canvas she was painting. It was abstract and messy and absolutely beautiful. "I don't know what it is yet," she wrote once, "but I think it's how I feel." I got it. Completely. Then one evening, I got an unexpected message on LinkedIn of all places from my high school English teacher, Mr. Abrams. He'd seen an essay I posted about burnout and boundaries in creative careers. "I always knew you'd have something important to say," he wrote. It caught me off guard. Not just the compliment, but the realization that I had something to say. That my voice, the one I used to muffle around my mother, had clarity now. Depth. Resonance. So I wrote more. I started drafting a series of essays, nothing too fancy, just reflections on identity, guilt, choosing peace over loyalty. I published them quietly on a personal blog, and people found them. Strangers emailed me. Some cried. Some thanked me. One woman wrote, "I thought I was the only one whose mother weaponized birthdays." It hit me hard, because I'd felt alone for so long. But I wasn't. None of us are. I began to realize that freedom isn't just about cutting ties, it's about rebuilding what those ties once choked out of you. The dreams. The laughter. The unapologetic ownership of your own damn story. So I leaned in. Took a weekend trip. Just me. No itinerary. I drove down the coast, stayed in a cabin with terrible Wi-Fi and incredible sunsets. Sat on a porch with tea in hand, doing absolutely nothing. And it was glorious. When I returned, there was no guilt. No emotional toll to pay. Just me, rested, grounded, and more certain than ever. This wasn't just a detour from family dysfunction. It was a new road entirely. One I paved. One I chose. Update. 3 months have passed since I broke contact for good. No dramatic scenes. No last-minute reconciliations. Just quiet. A deep, unshakable quiet that has settled around my life like a warm coat after a brutal winter. And here's the surprising part. I don't miss her voice. Not the sighs, not the passive-aggressive, "I guess you're too busy" texts. Not even the annual birthday call that always ended with guilt instead of love. Instead, I've begun to remember what life felt like before I was molded into the version of myself she needed, the apologetic, ever-available, emotionally compressed son she could hold over with phrases like, "After all I've done for you." That version of me is gone. This new version? I like him. He's quieter in the best way. More deliberate. My therapist calls it post-traumatic flourishing, and I have to admit, that phrase has stuck with me. I'm not just surviving, I'm flourishing. I turned 26 last week. For the first time in my adult life, I planned a birthday for myself. Small gathering. Rooftop dinner. A handful of people who make me feel safe and seen. Chloe came. She brought a homemade pie and hugged me like we were rewriting our siblinghood one careful step at a time. She didn't mention our mom once. Neither did I. That omission? It felt like a gift. I gave a little speech at the table. Just a thank you. Nothing grand. But it ended with something I hadn't planned. I used to think being loved meant being obedient. But now I know love isn't about fear. It's about freedom. And tonight, I feel free. There was a beat of silence. Then everyone raised their glasses. Freedom. That's what this part of my life is about. I started mentoring a local creative writing group. High schoolers, mostly. Kids with stories bottled up so tightly you can almost hear the pressure in the room when they first sit down. I tell them what I wish someone had told me. Your voice isn't too much. It's not too loud or too weird or too angry. It's yours. And that makes it sacred. And something wild happened. They believed me. Or at least, they wanted to. That's enough. I look around now and see pieces of the life I used to dream about. A Saturday morning with no dread. A bookshelf filled with books I actually chose. Walls painted colors no one else picked. A phone that only rings for people who lift me up instead of dragging me under. Do I miss having a complete family? Sometimes. When I see TV shows with sitcom moms who hug without strings, or overhear someone call their mom just to chat, it hits. But I remind myself I didn't cut ties with my mother. I cut ties with the illusion that her love was ever unconditional. There's a difference. And in shedding that illusion, I gained something priceless, peace that doesn't ask permission. This isn't the life she envisioned for me. It's better. And I'm not going back. It's been 6 months now. Half a year since I shut the door on the chapter one never wrote but lived through anyway. When people ask me how I'm doing, I no longer hesitate before answering. I say, I'm good. And for once, I actually mean it. I don't wait for guilt to sneak in and steal that peace. I don't double-check the shadows for a voicemail or a trap disguised as a kind gesture. The ghosts don't have teeth anymore. They're just echoes now. The thing no one tells you about cutting ties with family is how empty the space feels at first. But what they also don't tell you is that emptiness can be fertile. You get to plant new things there. Boundaries. Beliefs. Joys that are yours, unborrowed and unbid. Chloe and I see each other regularly now. We talk about the little things. She started painting commissions and found a circle of people who actually support her art. We don't talk about Darlene. And honestly, that silence is the kindest thing we've ever given each other. A few weeks ago, I stood in front of a room full of strangers at a storytelling night downtown. It was open mic. I read one of my essays about breaking cycles. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. Afterward, someone came up to me and said, "You told my story." That's when I knew this wasn't just about me. It never had been. This was about all of us who were told that love had strings, that compliance was a virtue, that boundaries were betrayal. This was about the people who thought silence was protection, when really it was a cage. So I'll say this now, not just for me, but for anyone who needs to hear it. You're allowed to leave. Even if they raised you. Even if they fed you. Even if they said they loved you while slowly eroding who you were. You're allowed to be the villain in their story if it means being the hero in your own. I don't need Darlene to acknowledge the hurt she caused. I don't need an apology. What I needed was space. What I built was a life. A good one. And maybe the most radical thing I've done is this. I've forgiven her, not because she deserves it, but because I do. I deserve to live unanchored by resentment. That forgiveness? It's not a door. It's a window. Just enough to let the light in. Just enough to remind me that healing is possible without permission. So here's to the quiet ones who finally spoke up. To the givers who learned how to receive. To the sons and daughters and siblings who drew the line and dared to call it love. What's your story? When did you realize you had the right to write a new ending? Drop it in the comments. Let your voice be the match. Someone out there is still sitting in the dark, and they need your fire.